Yeah, I'm Nelson Lowry, the production designer.
Sorry.
Gonna have to do that again.
I'm so
Take
sorry.
two.
I had
Take
it close.
two.
Take two. All right, go for it.
I'm Nelson Lowry, the production designer.
And I'm Chris Butler, the writer and director of Missing Link.
Go be specific.
Yeah.
Chris, when did you first conceive this idea?
I keep telling this story and I keep saying it's 15 years, but I think I've just made that up. It's a long time ago.
20 years.
It could be because I tend to have like a notebook full of ideas that I kind of dip in and out of over the years, and this was an old one. This was me wanting to do kind of stop motion Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So was there ever a time where it had to take a backseat to maybe other projects?
Yes, constantly. But that's fine. I kind of sit on them and think, I'll come back to this at some point.
I love it. It's so cute.
Not to upstage you guys.
I mean,
Sorry.
yeah, can we just... He is great, isn't he?
So is this kind of like your own theory about the Sasquatch and all this stuff about the missing link?
No, not really. I mean, it's funny though, because sometimes like I take like research very seriously, like historical research and cultural research, and occasionally you have to check yourself because you're like, is this about a Bigfoot that talks and wears clothes? Yes, it is. Thank you. So no, I don't actually believe in it. Is it okay for me to say that?
Yeah, nor do I.
No, I mean, really.
A little disheartening.
Well,
Sorry.
the way I look at it is, if you look at cuttlefish at the bottom of the ocean, flashing colors and crazy things, like, there's your crazy missing link. Creatures,
Right.
There's enough wonder in the natural world.
Without a talking Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Nelson, I think you rarely see any type of animated, be it CG or any type of feature this lavish with such a great variety of locations, such exotic locations. I really feel this whole team broke past your limits for this film. Was it a challenge for you, and did you ever feel tested during this production?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, first of all, and yes to all of those things, and so much that, there's so much uniqueness in the film, and I mean that by like each location is an eye wash. You go from one, you start to get comfortable with it, and I don't know, we figured out there's probably every 6 minutes we change locations across the film, which is very, very aggressive kind of design schedule to get that through all that stuff. I know, I can remember reading the script and I kept thinking, that'll get cut, and none of that stuff got cut. So, for me, it was just a job of allocating the resources and making sure that the film stayed interesting and vibrant through the whole film, and that I didn't, concentrate too much in one area and lose the plot. So, it was challenging, but it was also incredibly fun because I got to learn about all the places I was researching. It was turn of the century, so like I was looking at old reference and Library of Congress and finding these old images, old National Geographics. So yeah, it was fun.
And I think he's kind of underselling himself here because in terms of the scope and scale of this movie, there is nothing that's even been attempted on this scale before in stop motion. So I truly am sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's all done now. So.
Yeah.
The last major, I think, interpretation I recall for Shangri-La in any type of media, I think, was like an Uncharted video game. I don't think we've seen like.
Oh, possibly.
But speaking of which, I'm just curious, like, what was it you wanted to bring with your version of Shangri-La, and did Nelson and the team pull it off of your vision?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of pulled it off. No, I wanted this to be. My point of view about a movie like this is that you want to reward the audience, especially in the third act. You want to have something that is like a real treat for them. And so I knew Shangri-La. It's this mythical place that these characters are searching for, and thematically, it was important that it was Shangri-La because Shangri-La has become, a byword for one's personal utopia, what you strive for, and that's all the characters in this movie are striving to find their place. So that's essentially why it was about Shangri-La. I took a lot of cues from Lost Horizon, and then I kind of talked about what I wanted this place to represent, and then I kind of gave all that with the script to this guy and kind of said, sort it out.
And that was very fun. Just looking at architecture and trying to figure out what would wow the audience. But also, it's not just. It is what you sort of said. It was it's sort of a reward or a gift to the audience for that big reveal of the temple. But there's also it's layered because within the temple it's like very rigid, and without giving too much of it away, there's a little bit of a twist there. So it had to hit a lot of different beats,
Right.
kind of complex beats. But I looked at this kind of architecture called Jainism, and I mixed it with another form of architecture called brutalism. We tried to make it non-denominational, of course, so we didn't insult anybody or
Right.
hit the wrong note with the design. But as exciting as all the locations were to design, they were all real places. So it was kind of my reward too at the end of the script to see, the temple, the Yeti temple, and I was like, yes.
It's the one location in the movie that isn't real in a sense, because I think if you're telling a story like this, especially a period story, you give the audience something to hook on to. So like if you show Victorian era London, they're expecting to see horse-driven carts and pigeons and chimney stacks. So you give them that, but then it's like Shangri-La. What do you give them? And we talked about what it means for the story, and in essence, we wanted to think of it as kind of like the square root of humanity. It's like if someone said, design Atlantis, like where do you start? And I think you take what you see and you kind of boil it down to what works. We ended up with something gorgeous. I'm very, very, I think that's probably my favorite sequence when they first.
Yeah, it's also kind of a counterintuitive stop motion set in so much that it's the elements of it are very minimal. It's like ice walls, ice bridge, and this temple. Usually in stop frame you're able to, use more conventional things that people are used to seeing, so they can identify, this is this place or this is this place. And so all those elements had to be really beautifully balanced and carefully designed so that it could, take the third act and, you could watch the film and feel there was enough newness to all those things.
And I think that with stop motion as well, there can be a tendency, because everything's handmade, there can be a tendency to just flood the frame with all this amazing stuff. And you've got to be able to step back and look at it and say, what is this frame about? And negative space is a wonderful thing. This guy is a master at using minimalism. So yes, I think it's by far the most beautiful movie we've made.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased, but
I think it is.
thank you.
I actually haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh.
I'm
Oh,
looking
no
forward
spoilers.
to.
Have we ruined it?
No.
Okay.
Actually, you're hyping it
Shangri-La
up
is
even
in
more.
the trailer, so
Yeah, it's in
yeah,
the trailer, so
okay.
it's hyping up even more.
the Yetis are in the trailer, so it's
That is true.
So I'm curious about the main character himself. Did you base him off of someone? Because he just seems so familiar.
It's weird because I have notebooks that stretch back many years, and I did a drawing of this guy, and we've come to talk about it as a hairy avocado with legs, and
Which is trendy right now.
and this drawing has just crept up so many times. And at the start of this thing, at the start of any movie, you're kind of looking for something. How can we make this look different? And I worked with a bunch of different character designers, and none of it was clicking. And people kept talking about this hairy avocado to the point where I was like, there is something in this. There is definitely something charming about this. So I went back to that, and that ended up. That's basically this guy. And sometimes that's the way. You go around the houses for years, and you end up back where you started. I think that exploration is important, but there was definitely something primarily charming about that first drawing.
It's like friendly shapes. He's super comfortable. And he's a good example of how simple, seemingly simple the design is. It's just like these tubes for legs, but it's the proportions were worked and carefully gone over in sculpts and reviews and trying to get it just right. So, yeah, they're friendly shapes. I think all the characters are kind of that way.
Yeah.
There were we were at the recent set visit a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And so good to see you again.
Yeah, good to
Nelson.
see you.
So there were two sets that really stuck out to me, and that was the train station and the ship. The ship was phenomenal.
Did you see the sequence with the the chase through the ship?
No, I didn't get a chance to see the movie yet.
Best sequence of the film. I love that.
Oh,
I love
there we
that
go.
bit. Don't
Ooh,
think
something
so.
cool about the sequence?
So I'm still looking
Don't put
forward
some
to
face
it.
on it.
But,
Let me just say, James Cameron, eat your heart out.
wow. So can you give us a little bit of insight, especially the train station out in Santa Ana, because I'm not too far from here.
Right.
I'm familiar with it, and most notably the ship. I mean, that thing was, like I said, it was so detailed. And I remember when we all walked in, we were like, "Oh my God, this is phenomenal! This is crazy." So just a little bit of insight on the train station and the ship.
Yeah, sure. Well, each environment is in a way a character. I mean, especially vehicles and things like that, like the train, which is, by the way, we're all model makers at heart, and so we grew up, some of us, with train stations and things. So the shop just loved that they were going to make a giant train, and I think that shows. It's so beautifully rendered and built. But it's that kind of how close you're going to go to reality. So we did a lot of research, and Santa Ana, we had great pictures of it, and we upped the color here and there to match the tone and color of the film. And then we do what I call Frankensteining, which is you take the best parts of that, and if something isn't really working, you can take parts of another train station. That's the flexibility and placidity of what we do. Is we're able to sort of combine all that stuff. And then for the ship, yeah. Again, it's like a dream come true. I was a model maker as a kid, and here we are building, because even though it's digital, the ship that you see moving through the sea, we built a maquette for it in the computer department, which is, at LAIKA, scans it, and then the art department makes all these textures, and, we use sandpaper for the wear and the rust, laser cut in shapes, and, do a lot of specular changes, so there's big flat areas and shiny areas, and so when you see that ship and the moonlight raking across it, it gives it this great huge physicality. But yeah, they're labors of love. I mean, and we get to really fuss with them and make them outstanding. So.
The movie does go to so many locations, like you also said. Were there any spots that you considered taking the characters that you decided against?
Yeah, there are a few. There was a sequence in Mumbai that we ended up having. I mean, you just can't do it.
Wasn't that Egypt? Well, I remember seeing
Oh, there was
pyramids and
there
Sphinx,
was
maybe?
there was
Yeah.
one point, one of the travel montages where they were on a dhow, traveling past. There was a camel in the foreground, and and it's like, are we really going to build a dhow and a camel for one shot? And I'm like, yes. Can we, please? And then the answer is no, you can't. And those are the limitations that actually end up making the movie better, because you when you first write a script, I mean, certainly for me, it's, if you made it, it'd be 2 hours long, and things have to go. There was oh dear, there was a chase sequence in the Indian jungle where the villains were chasing the characters on an elephant, and at one point I wrote that they almost fell into a river full of crocodiles. That went. So, you can't have everything you want. Maybe a sequel.
Maybe extra footage, extra special.
No.
How much work is that? Yeah.
Talk to the producer.
I don't know if either of you are familiar with Gravity Falls, but there was once a stop motion animation story in that series where there's a very sort of meta line about stop motion animation where they ask this old school sort of Ray Harryhausen stop motion animator about how he really makes stop motion animation, and apparently he conjures them up from this like dark dimension, and he says like, are you kidding me? Do you really think I take models and move them shot by shot? I'm not a masochist.
Yeah.
Is that really how it works?
Yes. Yeah.
You mean you conjure them from a dark dimension?
Oh.
Because you're not masochist.
Well, you've got to remember.
Those two choices are.
Is that it?
Are they actually kind of close together?
Also, you've got to know that neither of us are animators.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I look at them and I'm like, why do you do this? Like, this is so hard. They really are masochists. Are we going to use this? Because there's one right over there. But he's great. No, it is. You've got to be passionate about it because it is brutal. particularly for the animators, they are a unique breed because they are spending 10 hours a day under these bright lights. They are moving these awful puppets. I mean, they're beautiful, but, you know,
A lot can go wrong.
I wouldn't want to do it. Would
Kind
you?
of like a
No.
connected question to that one, because you said about all these things that got cut out and everything, but when you write and create the story, you kind of think about the animators when you're writing. You're like, nope,
I
story
do,
first,
but
and
then I
we'll
think,
about it.
well, tough. That's your job.
Yeah,
So-
but also you don't want to limit anything. You know,
No,
you,
that's-
you want
that's
to
the
just,
other thing.
You know, he just wants to.
No, and actually, I think the studio has always been really good with me in terms of like not trying to limit. And actually, I think that's something that I'm proud of at LAIKA, is that, you know, traditionally stop motion did tell a certain type of story because of the limitations of the medium, and those limitations are that you have a physical puppet on a physical set with physical cameras, so that you're kind of limited as to how big you can go. And I think certainly with the advent of digital technology, and certainly with what we're doing at LAIKA, those limitations don't exist anymore. So I'm able to tell a story like Missing Link, which is under no circumstances should anyone have ever attempted to make that movie in stop motion, but we did, and we succeeded, and I think it's because of the innovations that it's allowed us to do that. So no, then they never say like, oh, don't write that. I mean, I might not always get what I want, but I try.
But also, like, we probably couldn't have done this 5 or 7 years ago.
That's
either.
true.
Like,
That is definitely true.
It's all this learning together has allowed us to.
Yeah.
I mean, even the sets are very large now too. So we're not
Yeah.
just digitally extending them, but the sets themselves are
Huge.
So, you know, I always think of, you know, early stuff frame was somebody's basement or in their studio or, you know, in a little garage,
Right.
and now it's just blown open. I mean, all those walls are gone. So
Yeah.
good.
Will any of these be on display anywhere? I know there was the Comic-Con exhibit last year, which was an amazing way to see the process of these past
We
movies.
do really try to do as much of that as we can. I know there was talk at some point of some kind of tour. I don't know. I'm not perhaps the person to ask about that, but we love people to see that. I mean, to me, that's when you really, you know, when people come to the studio, it's like Santa's workshop. You know, it really
Yeah, I
is
had no
this
idea.
this treasure trove. So we like to encourage people to see it as much as they can. So yeah, take it home with you.
Thanks so much.
Don't say it.
Actually, don't. No, sorry.
You can't get in trouble.
Chris, now that you've finished this film, will your next film be a Transformers movie, or maybe since this movie I thought was just a great classic adventure film, very charming, amazing likable characters and amazing locations, maybe you could do Uncharted next too. What do you think?
Maybe. No, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, you spend so long on these things that you start. I mean, it's like this. You have to be myopic about it. We've been making this movie for 5 years. I've been writing it for maybe 10 or more years before that. So right now, when I close my eyes, this guy is there. You know, so I need a vacation. Basically.
Vacation, then we'll talk about Transformers.
That's right.
And Uncharted.
Yep. Okay. Deal.
You
would be-
have an agenda, I can tell.
You would, if I was making the decisions, you would be a guy I would call.
You are
Right
going
on.
to be my agent. Last question.
Definitely looking forward to this movie. I mean, I love all the LAIKA films.
Oh,
so
thank you.
like, definitely, thank you so much for all your hard work and
We are
everything.
very proud of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Well, I'll click covered everything away. Everybody else answered my questions for me. Maybe
Wow,
it makes
then
my
you're
day
right.
easy.
Thank you.